This week's episode of Millions of Screens is brought to you by Westworld. Westworld follows the dawn of artificial consciousness and the evolution of sin in a dark odyssey that begins in a world where every human appetite can be indulged. Aaron Paul, Vincent Cassell, Lena Waithe, and Scott Mescudi join Evan Rachel Wood, Jeffrey Wright, Thandie Newton, Ed Harris in its third season, which explored questions about the nature of our reality, free will, and what makes us human. This third season is hailed by Decider as a technical masterpiece. Westworld is Emmy eligible for Outstanding Drama Series and all other categories. Guys, HBO is listening to us, because again, the read is baked into what we're talking about in the episode. No?
Drama?
We're talking about drama, yeah!
It is millions and millions of little screens.
Can't you shut up? I'm busy. Boy, what a great show.
I'm creative producer Leo Garcia, joined via Zoom by Libby and Ben on either side of me, TV Awards editor Libby Hill, TV deputy editor Ben Travers. On today's episode, we're going to be talking the acting categories for drama at the Emmys. Burying the lead, part of our conversation with the Handmaid's Tale, Elisabeth Moss, who was a delight.
Wow. Delight.
A delight.
We talked for far too long to Elisabeth Moss, and we talked about everything we wanted to talk about. Chicago Cubs,
yeah,
Cats, Ann Dowd, The Last Supper, Suburban Commando. No, we didn't talk about Suburban Commando. Normally, this is where I'd say skipping ahead to the clicker, but this week, we're skipping the clicker. Let's jump into the acting categories. Best Supporting Actor, the only category that won't have a repeat winner, or can't have a repeat winner, I guess. Unless Peter Dinklage was in something I'm not aware of.
No, my dinner with Hervé was also last year, so...
So you guys are both very similar in your predictions for this. I think the only difference is like the order of the 5th and 6th selections.
Yeah, we mix it up. We mix up the last three, I think. But yeah, we are very compatible, supporting actor-wise.
If it helps, spur a conversation, I don't feel good about half of these picks. So there's a lot of wiggle room here.
Yeah, so you would say that the top three, which are where exactly you guys agree wholeheartedly, Culkin, Banks, and Crudup are locks for nominations.
Yeah. Those three people will...
You'll never use the phrase lock?
Right. I will never use the phrase lock when it comes to Billy Crudup and the morning show because that hurts my heart too much. But sure.
I feel quite confident that all three of those men will get nominated. It's weird to me that everyone has Culkin in their top spot, and including myself, because I don't necessarily think he's going to win. It just seems odd that they would be able to have the category without including him. He's such a memorable performance, let's say. Even though technically his coworker, Matthew Macfadyen, is probably delivering a more impressive performance simply because it is so far afield from his actual personality, A, and Mr. Darcy, B.
That, in a nutshell, speaks to my lack of confidence in this category because it's the same question that haunts the rest of the drama race. How obsessed with Succession will they be? How much can Succession make a dent as opposed to just kind of getting a good chunk of nominations? I feel confident that it'll do well, but it's impossible to say that Succession is going to be a dominant force based off of what we saw last year. We just don't know. So it'd be nice to see three names in this for Succession. It'd be nice to see a lot of representation across the board for the actors, but as we'll get into in the other categories, it's really hard to tell. And yeah, Banks is somebody who's been nominated a bunch of times. He has a good history with the Academy. He's coming off a very strong season on a very well-liked show. So there's not an issue facing him. There's no visibility problem. There's no reason that the show would go away. It's a consistent performer that should perform again. Crudup is one of those things where, because he seems to be the one spot within the morning show that basically everyone agrees on when you don't count me, he seems like the lock there. He seems like something that Apple will be able to push into contention.
He is the performer. He is the performance outside of Aniston that people within the industry seem to have sort of congealed around from the morning show supporting cast. And I use that word very specifically because he's an oily character. But I mean, I don't like having him up there. Like, I just like being right, if that makes sense. Like, it's not one of my favorite performances of the year. I just like, this is my job, and I think he's getting nominated. He did really well in the Winter Awards, and we've talked all the time about how those don't have direct relevance. But when it's at things like SAG, things like that, actors make up the largest part of the TV Academy voters.
A lot of the contenders we have listed here aren't, from shows that just came out or big surprising people or performances or whatever. Like, this is a lot of people who were also in contention back then, so the overlap between voting bodies could be somewhat similar. David Harbour is somebody that has gotten a lot of attention for Stranger Things. The show itself gets a lot of attention, but that show came out last summer. Succession was obviously a fall show. Handmaid's Tale was last summer. Better Call Saul was earlier this year, but that's just kind of a staple. Even The Crown was something from last year. So if we're talking about getting Josh O'Connor in there, he'd have to kind of build up a little bit more buzz than he even had already when the show debuted, which seems somewhat unlikely. So it's one of those things where I'd say the biggest spoiler here from the picks that I have in place right now would be Tom Pelphrey from Ozark, in that Netflix is giving him a really big push. The show did very, very well. It had wide viewership. He was new this season. He definitely had enough of a substantive role within the season to earn that supporting part as opposed to like a guest actor slot. So there's something, if they rally around Ozark, he could easily get in there instead of 2 for Succession, or instead of even David Harbour. So I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm still kind of undecided on how much people are going to like Ozark this year, but Pelphrey is one of those names that if I had to pick kind of outside the box, outside of the proven performers, he'd be the one.
Yeah, I feel very similarly about, this doesn't work quite as well, but Giancarlo Esposito, it's a role that people love, and an actor who delivers the role splendidly. So if they get tired and they can't remember what they watched in the last year, which I'm projecting but I wouldn't be shocked to see him in the list either.
I think your point, Libby, and this kind of goes across the board, is the fact that this is such a weird, strange FYC season that like the voting exist. The voting could just be like, this is what I did last year, so I'll do the same exact thing. Except I'll just add where the Game of Thrones characters can't be, I'll throw in someone new, but everything else will be the same.
Oh, I watched Succession. I have Game of Thrones slots here. I will put Succession people in here. That is my hope.
Should we move on to Best Supporting Actress, guys?
Should we
move on?
Should we move on? Mention Ozark again.
Well,
moving on. You're
going to get a chance to mention Ozark right up top, because last year, Julia Garner surprised, I think, everyone viewing by winning this award. Would you say she's a lock, Ben? Lock for a nomination? Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I'd say that for Julia.
Again, you guys are very similar in terms of your Gold Derby picks. Just order is the only thing that you guys differ on. And the main thing being that, Ben, you have Meryl Streep in the pole position, and Libby, you have Helena Bonham Carter.
I am profoundly not sold on most of these nominees. Garner gets in. I don't know who else gets nominated. Intellectually, Helena Bonham Carter. Intellectually, Meryl Streep, Laura Dern. Because they're Meryl Streep, Laura Dern, Helena Bonham Carter. But did people watch The Crown? And do people remember Big Little Lies? I don't know. And obviously they'll be reminded when they see the 400-page ballot, but I don't know. I just feel nothing. I look at this category and I feel so little. I feel pre-rage in case they snub one of the most deserving performances on television, that of Ray Seahorn, on Better Call Saul, who has never been nominated for the show, despite being arguably the best performance on the show.
I think it's going to be a wonderful category so long as everyone's favorite Emmy-winning actress Ann Dowd somehow sneaks into this nomination tally. And as you mentioned, Leo, I don't have her listed right now because it is very competitive, and I am very concerned about her getting bumped off the list 2 years after she took home her rightful Emmy, which should have been 2. And I do say that for Big Little Lies, even though it last competed as a limited series, I just don't see anybody rebelling too strongly because what they'd have to do is they'd have to say, one, this was a limited series. Clearly it's now a drama series, but because you tricked me, quote unquote, last time, I'm going to keep it off the ballot this time. And that's, one, just too complicated for Emmy voters to deal with. And two, isn't really reflective of who they want to nominate in the first place. So I think Streep and Dern feel pretty strong, like they're beloved by all actors all the time, no matter what they do. And if Laura Dern can get nominated for The Tale, which obviously she deserved, but was much less talked about when it premiered, then she can get nominated for this. And that to me means there's about 2 spots left, which means Seahorn, Tandy Newton, Ann Dowd. And at the same time, like, I'd love to see Susan Kelechi Watson sneak in. I'd love to see Tessa Thompson get in if somebody from Westworld had to, because Tandy Newton was completely wasted in season 3, and Tessa actually had a lot to do and did it very, very well. But it's the same thing with the Emmys. It's one of those things where they kind of check the box that they're familiar with. They check the box that they feel like they should check some of the time. And to me, I think that means Seahorn can get in this year because it's like the culmination effect, the Americans effect. Seems like the right time in the penultimate year for Better Call Saul. But yeah, I kind of sticking with Tandy right now, even though I'd love to see Sarah Snook get in. I'd love to see Succession get rewarded a little bit more.
I mean, there is absolutely a universe where we get an entire category just from those spoilers. Like, and it's a good category and it's not too shocking. Like, obviously it would be shocking if Dern and Streep and all of those names missed. But at the same time, in a normal year, seeing the category filled with the spoilers that I realize now, no one can see but us. Sorry, we have a document listing all of these, all of the predicted nominees, potential spoilers, and of course you can read all about this on Ben's predictions, Emmy predictions on the website. If you read, I don't, but
I don't either. I just copy and paste it.
No, but to give people an idea who's on that list, you have Ann Dowd from Handmaids, Cynthia Erivo from The Outsider, Fiona Shaw from Killing Eve, Holly Hunter from Succession, Yvonne Strahovski, who has honestly been delivering a wholly underrated performance on that show since it started on Handmaids, Millie Bobby Brown. I guess people like that performance in Stranger Things. As Ben said, Susan Kelechi Watson on This Is Us, Chrissy Metz on This Is Us, Shailene Woodley on Big Little Lies, who I think's performance is underrated, Felicia Rashad from David Makes Man, Gugu Mbatha Raw from The Morning Show. Like, there's an entire category there. There are several categories full of worthy and believable people on there, and I don't know. I fear we're going to get the boringest option.
Well, I think what's worth noting, though, especially considering a lot of the names you just said, is that while it seems like Streep, Carter, Dern, Garner, like those are big blocks, those are big names, those are, secure in this category. Like, the people we have off the list, Ann Dowd has been nominated each year for Handmaids, and so has Millie Bobby Brown. She's a 2-time 2 for 2 with Stranger Things as a supporting actress in a drama. Fiona Shaw has been up for Killing Eve. Yvonne finally got in last year or I shouldn't say finally, she got in season 2 for Handmaids. So like, this isn't something where like there's a lack of proven options. It's just one of those things where it's very hard to tell where the ultimate priority will lie when we look at the full board.
All right, well, let's move on to Best Actor, where Billy Porter won last year for Pose. Ben, is this when you want to talk about the Ozark news that we skipped in the clicker, talking about Jason Bateman?
I think it is worth noting that networks, especially this year, it seems, have been very careful with when they drop important news around shows that are Emmy contenders. This has always been a practice ever since, the Emmys really grew in prominence. The networks and PR machines have been trying to create stories around shows timed to the awards because they need people to remember that they exist. They need people to be reminded that this is there so that it's kind of forthright in their mind when they're going to their ballot. And this week was no different. The past few weeks have been no different, really. But as we, again, gear up for voting, Ozark was renewed for its fourth and final season by Netflix. That came in on Tuesday morning, 2 days before voting starts, as a nice big reminder that this show exists. A, B is ending. C is well regarded because with every news story that goes up about its renewal, when there's not a lot of copy to fill the space, they have to fill it with, hey, this thing has won Emmys. This thing has gotten good reviews. This thing has gotten X, Y, and Z that reminds people, hey, this is a big, important show. And HBO did the same thing with Curb Your Enthusiasm, which God knows nobody could bet on happening. Nobody was like, oh, we definitely know we're getting a season 11 of Curb Your Enthusiasm. But same thing happened on Tuesday morning for that big Emmy contender on HBO's slate. And, I mean, obviously there are very real things to discuss in terms of the narrative possibilities that creates for Ozark. 14 episodes in the final season, aka 2 parts of the final season split into 7 episodes each.
He won last year for directing, but can he take home the acting award? I guess for this category, the big thing is Kit Harington gone, and you have Mila Ventimiglia out, and you've replaced them with the 2 actors from Succession, Brian Cox and Jeremy Strong. But otherwise, you have the category exactly the same. Bateman, Odenkirk, Cox, Strong, Brown, Porter.
Well, this is, as Libby mentioned, the big This Is Us problem, in which, who knows, every year it seems like somebody's trying to tell you that Milo isn't going to get in, and every year he's gotten in. And again, 2 of them in the same category makes it harder to predict that sort of thing. And yet we're doing the same thing for Succession. So it's trying to feel out those trends, trying to say, Succession is a little bit stronger this year, so we expect that to get a little bit of a boost. But if it's going on viewership and popularity, then This Is Us cannot be counted out. So
can we talk about my big fear for this category, though?
Ooh, I wonder if it's mine.
I'm afraid Billy Porter gets dropped.
Ooh.
Yeah, but who takes the spot? My ultimate fear, which, again, is based entirely in my own head and yet carries its own warped sense of logic because of it, is that Porter gets dropped in favor of Steve Carell. And that maybe we're underestimating This Is Us, but maybe we're underestimating The Morning Show. And Apple TV can capitalize off of the immense popularity of this guy who can't seem to catch a break with critics, given the results of everything from The Morning Show to Space Force to Jon Stewart's comedy Irresistible, but he's still very well liked by the TV Academy. And if they're going to recognize him somewhere, I don't know if it's this or for Space Force, where, comedy might have a little bit weaker of a race. But again, because he's very front and center in Apple's campaign for this show, and he did, if I'm not mistaken, grab a SAG nomination at the end of last year, he's somebody who I think is sitting right there as like the person I've at least kind of counted out, but can't quite forget is a player.
I have him in comedy. I know Space Force is really weak, but that comedy is a weaker category, so I know that's where I have him as playing sort of a spoiler. This category feels too stacked. Even though it's not, it feels more locked up than maybe some of the other ones. Like, we're going to get these nominees in some kind of, except for also all of the This Is Us people. It's, again, do they watch This Is Us? Do they watch Succession? Do they watch Westworld?
Ben, you are right. Steve Carell did get nominated at the SAGs. The SAG grouping for actor was Peter Dinklage, who won, Sterling K. Brown, Steve Carell, Billy Crudup, and David Harbour.
Yeah, that's SAG's tough because they don't do supporting categories, so you definitely know who's strong there, which makes a really good point, Ben. I think I might be underestimating Carell in that category of the actors something to keep in mind, something that I have conveniently been forgetting myself or trying to overlook, is that SAG has never really gone in on the Succession actors. It's a problem. So we'll see if that has an effect on things in a few weeks.
Well, guys, moving on to Best Actress, and maybe using the SAG Awards as another jumping off point here, because the
Great one, Leo.
The SAGs had Jennifer Aniston, Helena Bonham Carter, Olivia Colman, Jodie Comer, and Elisabeth Moss, which are, aside from the fact that Helena Bonham Carter will be in supporting, lines up with, I think, both of your top four. Exactly. Aniston, Coleman, Comer, and Moss. And then you guys, again, agree on most everything. Oh, I guess, Libby, you have Linney in the number one spot.
Yeah, that's where we've got to start. Let's talk about
Laura
Linney
do that.
and Ozark.
Let's do it.
We haven't talked enough about Ozark this week. Libby, talk me through the Laura Linney idea.
I'm tired of having our top 6 look exactly the same on Gold Derby. And I feel like the category is a real toss-up right now. I'm sure as shit not putting Aniston in the top spot.
How dare you?
And I had Coleman in that top spot a lot for the same reason I have Malik on my list. She's an Oscar winner now. She's playing the Queen. I don't know if anyone watched it, but it just it seemed natural. I bumped Linney up there because I, every year up until this point, underestimate the industry's love for Ozark. And I thought, maybe this time I'll get ahead of the buzz. I refuse to do it in actor. I refuse to do it with Bateman. I know he's beloved, but I have to believe it'll go to a Succession actor. But that's why Linney's in my one spot right now. Also, she's just the best person. So.
Well, I have Aniston in the top spot because I think Apple will go all in the most obscene way we've ever seen to get her an Emmy win in season 1. It would be unprecedented for a streamer to have its first original series in the first year of competition win such a major award at the Emmys. So I think that they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that happens. Given that she won the SAG, and given the enthusiastic response around her win for the SAG, I think that speaks well to just how people are feeling about her in general, as everyone other than Libby, obviously. But I think Coleman is somebody who still is very, very strong. I think last year's winner, Jodie Comer, should be a pretty good lock this year, if only because Killing Eve remains an extremely popular show, even if season 3 took a pretty big hit critically. And Comer has an episode that's kind of given to her in its entirety and lets her do a few new things that are exciting to watch. So I don't think anybody's going to hold it against her. Moss is somebody who represents that show so well that it's hard to imagine her getting kind of bumped off the list. And then it kind of comes down to, how those last 2 spots get filled out yet again. And I love Laura Linney. I think Ozark is right there. So it's hard for me to imagine her being left off the list in a season where she arguably outperformed Bateman. And then that last spot, a lot of people are saying Kidman because it's Big Little Lies and because it's Nicole Kidman and because how can you not? But look at the competition. Again, look at how many people who in previous years were nominated, if not locks for a nomination, like Evan Rachel Wood in Westworld, Sandra Oh in Killing Eve, Mandy Moore finally got in for This Is Us.
Viola Davis
in the last
Claire
season.
Danes.
All of them are, powerhouses. Like they shouldn't be that, any of them making the nominee list shouldn't be that surprising. And yet, because of what we're looking at this year, it would be. Especially somebody like Danes, who's just been off the radar for a little bit too long.
Listening to you two talk through this category, I don't know how there's another, I know those first 5 seem like locks with a capital L. And then literally you're saying are we going to bump Nicole Kidman for Evan Rachel Wood or Mandy Moore or Sandra Oh? It's like there's 7 people vying for one spot, kind of. in the whole spoiler territory.
I would also like to just flag, if we could, that it's a real shame Kiki Dunst is stuck in this category, considering On Becoming a God in Central Florida, while an hour long, is absolutely a black comedy and should be competing in the comedy races.
Fucking furious about it. Legitimately. It's wrong that they did that. And it really burns me that the Academy has no problem changing its mind on other things. Clearly, what with the whole Black Mirror brouhaha earlier, like, it's a comedy. Like, I don't know why they are so married to this idea that half-hour comedy, hour-long drama. I mean,
it's kind of crazy. This category has last year's winner, obviously, in Jodie Comer, and then it has Aniston, who won the SAG. It has Olivia Colman, who won the Golden Globe. Elisabeth Moss, who's won previous Golden Globes for this role. There's
and
two
an Emmy.
And Emmys. There's too much going on in this category.
Yeah, and it's also another category in which it could be completely controlled by white nominees. So that would be a great way to remind people that, hey, Rosa Salazar in Undone, fantastic, really
So
impressive
good.
work. She's really, animation aside, just really putting in some incredible performances, so let's reward that. Same goes for MJ Rodriguez on Pose, who's absolutely fantastic. And I think that this is one that our colleague Ann Thompson thinks might actually happen. I completely disagree, but I would fully support Zendaya making the cut for Euphoria. I don't think Euphoria deserves anything else in terms of the primetime Emmys. There's some creative arts that it could easily and justifiably get nominated for. But Zendaya's performance is absolutely one of the top 6 of the past year. She carried that very strange, very dark show from start to finish.
Right.
So that would be nice.
It's kind of crazy that we ended on Best Actress, which segues wonderfully into our interview with Elisabeth Moss.
Oh my God, we interviewed Elisabeth Moss?
We did last week.
It was
were
so
there.
good. It was so good, Ben.
I must
You would have
blacked
loved
out.
it. I think you did. Several times.
I
Also-
definitely froze several times during the conversation.
I didn't realize this until we hung up, but I have Peggy on the wall behind me.
Oh, wow.
She was there the whole time.
So without further ado, here's our interview with Elisabeth Moss. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I am excited to learn about season 4 of The Handmaid's Tale. We actually
So am I,
premiered
Libby.
I know. We premiered the teaser trailer for season 4, promising us that the show will be back in 2021. As an executive producer, can you talk a little bit about what the process of bringing us and restarting production looks like on your end, and what kind of progress you're making, and what kind of considerations you have to take?
It was just on a call tonight about it. There are a lot of prongs to the process, and obviously there are all the health and safety regulations that have come out from from Canada. That one's called Section 21. There's the white pages, I think it's called. There's all the guild outlines that we've all seen. So there's a lot of stuff to look at. Some are mandates and some are suggestions. And there's a lot of information that's coming in every day. So we're kind of dealing with that, grappling with that, having conversations, trying to figure out, how do we make the show? Because we have almost all of the scripts written. So, so how do we make the show that we wanted to make? How do we stick to the show that we have made for the past 3 years? At the same time, keeping it safe. At the same time, making sure that it's safe for everybody, for the crew, for the cast, for everyone. So that's the balance. And we certainly don't have all the answers, but we're having conversations about it every day, trying to figure it out. We shot 2 weeks. So there are actually 4 shots that I directed in that teaser.
Oh my God!
Yeah. There's a shot of Nick, and there's a shot of Fred, and a couple others. But I was very excited to see those. So there's I only directed for like a day and a half, but we have a little bit in the can, but not enough to make anything. So yeah, it'll be 2021, but we're hoping to go back obviously much sooner than that.
Absolutely. So June went on a real journey in season 3, and she made some choices at the end that I think some fans might have been split on. Tell me this. In a world when executions are sort of summarily taking place all the time, how do you keep it realistic that June is still alive? And how much of it is just about Hannah for her? If she was able to get Hannah out, is that it? Like, would she be done?
Well, to answer, I have a couple answers for you. The kind of cold executive producer answer is like, the reason why June is still alive is because I'm the lead of the show. I'm number 1 on the call sheet.
It's because the lead actress insists we not kill her off.
Somehow I insist on being on the show. No, like we can't,
Of course.
It's called The Handmaid's Tale, so we can't kill the handmaid. I mean, I guess we could, but I don't, and I hope people don't want that. But so that's one answer. The other answer is really good. The other question is really good though. Like, if she could get Hannah out, would she go? I think 100%. I think absolutely. I think that's the only reason. I think that used to be the only reason that she stayed. I should say that used to be the only reason that she stayed. I think it's morphed a little bit in season 3 into it's Hannah, but it's also, she's gotten a more global sort of idea of what her role could be in the resistance. So I think if she could get Hannah out, she would go immediately. But I think that she's also now, and this is what the end of season 3 was about, she also is like, oh wait, there are all these other kids. And perhaps the way to really, can I swear? I don't, in this?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
This is
Okay,
an
great.
explicit podcast.
Perfect. Excellent.
Apple knows.
Amazing. If I really want to fuck with Gilead, if I really want to hit them where it hurts, it's taking their kids away. And so I think she's kind of now straddling getting Hannah out, but also wanting to enact change on the ground and dealing with that as we go into season 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
At the risk of shifting tracks too abruptly, I jotted this question down, and Ben seemed to.
Oh no, you froze.
Oh no,
I know, he
I think I know what he's going to ask too. This was the question that Leo wrote, and as soon as he wrote it, I couldn't think about anything else. And I'm pretty sure it's the idea that you have to work so close to camera so much of the time. Like the way that this show is shot, not only do you have certain moments where you're looking directly into the camera, but there are so many close-ups of your face that, one, balancing that performance is very, very difficult. And 2, there has to be something, visually interesting about that kind of repetition, about seeing those shots again and again and again. But for you as an actor, like, how do you ignore it? Like, how do you start to build up that tolerance for just having the camera be right there while you're still living in a world and a narrative where it doesn't exist?
It's kind of a combination of I don't see it, and I just don't see it sometimes. It's weird. But also then completely contradict myself and say, I also use it and know that it's there at times and find it a very useful tool. As at the risk of sounding a bit cheesy, for me, the camera and the lens is my window to the viewers. So I know that it's not in the moment. I know there's just, there's a man on the other side sweating and covered in, wearing black and swearing under his breath. But I know that's not what's happening in the moment, but I know that is my window into the viewers' homes, really. And so for me, I love that connection. I love how close it is, and I love it feeling extremely intimate. And I feel like with a good camera operator as well. I adore camera operators, and I think they're incredibly important members of a team. And the fact that you sort of, a good camera operator, you have a string between you and the camera, and you and the lens, you and them, and that string, it moves and it can stretch and it can come back together, and it really is a good camera operator you feel really connected with. So for me, it's just another tool that I use. So I don't look at it like something that's like, what are you doing? Get out of my face. It's something that I feel very connected with.
I have to commend Ben, because he voiced that so much more artfully than I wrote it down when I just wrote.
It really did. I was amazed. It was the same question.
I wrote, how close is too close to the camera?
And touching.
That's amazing.
It just seems like the easy answer is touching. And you're
if
like,
the lens
gets
touches
too close to the camera.
Ben's like,
this is too close.
I'm going to help.
Too close.
I wanted to ask, if I could, really quick about just kind of scene partners in general, and most of my knowledge is going to come from Handmaids, because that's what I've spent the most time with.
That's good, Ben.
Well,
I like
watching those scenes where there's a lot of kind of there's a lot of tension within each exchange. There's a lot of kind of, whenever somebody has to share information with someone else, it's this delicate kind of trust exercise where almost every word and every gesture and every line has to convey something very specific for the other person to even want to respond in any sort of authentic way, or move the scene forward, or find purpose within that moment. I don't understand how you do it with so many different people. Like there's obviously the series regulars who have to kind of come in and learn that specificity, but you also have so many new cast members who step in and they have to get it just right. And yet TV moves so quickly, and there's so much nuance packed in. Like as the top of the call sheet person, do you kind of help at all? Like, do you set a tone? Do you set like the barometer for how to gauge those scenes and try to give people time? Are there tips that you have, like when you're trying to bring somebody new in and make them feel comfortable? Like, what's that kind of process like?
It's interesting. It's a very good question, Ben. I think that it's changed over the years. It's funny on a show, because the first season, when you're doing the first season, no one's seen it. So nobody knows what it is. And then by the time you get to a third season or a fourth season, you now have people, guest actors coming in, or guest directors coming in, who have seen the show, and they're perhaps or hopefully fans of the show. So they sort of, it's a good and a bad thing, because in a way they come in and they have a knowledge of the show, they understand it, and they know what it is. The negative side of it is they are like, oh my God, there's whoever it is now, there's Serena, or there's somebody, and they're like a little bit starry-eyed. So I think that you kind of have to, because of my involvement in the show as an EP, I really live with the scripts for a very long time. I saw the first scripts back in December for this season, December 2019. So and knew what they were going to be in July of last year, of 2019, and knew where we were going with the show. So I live with these stories for so long, and I think about it so much. And I think by the time somebody gets there, whether they're new or whether they're a regular, our regulars have a pretty good understanding of what they're doing. They're amazing. But you're so in deep, and you've thought about it so much that it feels relatively easy to communicate to them, this is where we are in the season, this is where we are in the episode, this is what the purpose of this scene is, this is, like you said, the specificity of this moment, and this is where we're going with June, and this is why you're here, and you just have thought about it so much. So I think you want to I try to welcome them into that fold and try to give them as much information as possible, and give them scripts if possible, tell them a lot of our guest actors show up and they have no idea what happened before.
Right.
In the episodes leading up to these episodes, they're like, I don't know where we are or why we're here. And so I try to kind of be like, what happened is, and then that's why you're here, and they're like, wow, because they don't know sometimes. But in a way, my job is the easiest job. In a way, because it's not easy, but in a way, my job, I know the part so well. I know the character. I've thought about it a lot. I know what I'm supposed to do. I can, just put me on, and I'll do it. So I do have time to think about a lot of the other elements, because mine, I'm kind of like, it's fine. June's fine. We'll do that. It'll be all right.
That's good. That's good.
And
Yeah.
did you
Ben,
have a
Ben, do you have a follow-up question?
I do have a follow-up question, which is where I burn off any goodwill that I've earned thus far.
You teed him up.
Pretty much, yeah. I am a massive fan of Ann Dowd, and Ann Dowd is the nicest, kindest, most generous person I may have ever met in my life, but I've only met her off the set. So I'm very curious what it's like to work with her in those scenes when she has to do the things that she does in the show. Like, I don't know if she just flips it back and forth or if she's just like that person while she's working, or like, I don't. So please tell me anything you can about.
I'm so glad you asked, because it's so fascinating. She completely flips it off. Like, she completely goes back and forth. She literally will. It's psychotic in the most like genius way. She is, as you know, like the nicest person. Like, she'll be doing a scene where she's like, girls, like blah blah blah, and like cattle prodding people and yelling and burning people's hands, and then it finishes and she's like, we often have a lot of background actors, we have a lot of handmaids often that she's working with, and as soon as there's a cut, she's like, how are you, sweetie? Are you okay? How's your boyfriend? Did you get to see him recently? Or she'd be like, how's your father? Is he feeling better? Like, she knows everyone's story, everyone's family. Like, she's constantly being like, is everyone drinking water? It's very important that you hydrate. Like, is everyone well fed? Did you get a snack? She's like, it's crazy. And then there's like action, and she's like, goes right into Aunt Lydia. It's truly like mental.
That would make Aunt Lydia so much more terrifying to me. Like, if I saw that juxtaposition of just like, oh, this person's super nice, then all of a sudden she was a monster again, I would be right back into the place. So
I know, but when she's in it, she is in it, man. Like, she's like, I remember we were doing a scene once in season 3, and she pulled my chair. We were acting, and she pulled my chair so hard that I almost fell out of it. And I don't know if it's in the show or not, but I literally like looked at her and was like, watch it. Like, Jesus, Anne. But she's in it. I mean, she's just, when she's in it, she's in it.
Yeah, she did.
Brilliant.
She did tell me once that she enjoys to get out that side of herself, like that is a real part of her, and playing these roles allows her to kind of. So maybe she was enjoying it a little bit. Maybe
I think she does.
A little bit of Anne.
I think she does enjoy it. I can see that, which I love.
Guys, we're back.
Oh my God, she's so great. How is she so great?
That was amazing.
I loved it.
She's wonderful.
Let's do it again.
Yeah. Be sure to
That's a lot shorter than I remember, Leo.
It is shorter. That's why I was going to say, if you do want to listen to the full interview or watch the full interview, we'll be releasing that a little bit later in the week, but it'll be on the same feed that Millions of Screens is normally on. Guys, it's that time in the show when I do a very quick Google search for the word Quibi, and here's what we got. The fall of Quibi. How did a starry 1.75 billion Netflix rival crash so fast? From The Guardian.
Wow, Guardian.
Forbes, Quibi stumbles on lack of TV know-how. Variety, The Princess Bride on Quibi, a review of the first 4 minutes with Adam Sandler and ...
Yeah, that was it. All of those articles are deeply flawed. I'll say that. I don't really like coming to the defense of Quibi, but one, it is not competing against Netflix, and two, to say that its failures are based on misunderstanding television seems odd for something that was very purposefully not trying to be television. That being said,
it doesn't even work on a television.
Not yet.
Not yet.
That's actually a perfect segue, Leo, so does all of that coverage mean that Quibi is dead?
No, Quibi is still alive. In fact, apparently a day ago, they made a deal with Blumhouse to create a murder mystery series. I don't know why.
It'll probably have a bigger budget than most Blumhouse films because it's Quibi and they don't know how to haggle.
Also, Nicole Richie's comedy Nikki Fresh was renewed for a second season.
I actually enjoyed that, so I'm not mad.
Millions of Screens is a production of the Penske Media Corporation and IndieWire. Our theme music features excerpts of the classic YouTube video Bjork Talking About Her TV and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Our editor-in-chief is Dana Harris-Brightson. Our publisher is James Israel. And our executive editor is Ann Donahue. Our favorite Elisabeth Moss performances are as Jenny Tyler in The Last Supper, obviously, Zoe Bartlett in The West Wing, and Little Girl in Suburban Commando. Oh, wait. Those are just Leo's picks. I'm Leo. You can't write this. You can't write this in the third person. You can find us on Twitter at A Million Screens, at Midwest Spitfire, at Ben T. Travers, and at Leo Adrian Garcia. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play. So please leave a review and a rating and let us know what you think. This is Ben, Libby, and Leo, reminding you as always that you shouldn't let poets lie to you.
You shouldn't let poets lie to you.
Ain't nothing wrong with a couple of cold brews and a cool podcast.